I believe maybe we can we send a chat to Aiden?
I got it.
You got it? Okay. Anyway, Anthony, good job showing up from idea to impact. And, you know, Nick has all kinds of amazing ideas. He does awesome things in his region in the Northwest. So where would that be? Is that mostly Washington, Oregon? Is it parts of Northern California or no California?
No, well, we get Montana, Idaho, northern Utah, and Alaska.
Oh, and Alaska. There you go. So a far reach. That's cool. Anyway, they have a super awesome region. And I was just looking at this, Nick. You know, any idea you have, Anthony. So think about, you said you were in a band, right? Am I remembering correctly?
Yes.
Yes. So thinking about, you know, we're going to talk about bringing ideas to fruition, essentially. Like, how do you come from an idea to having something impact? But, you know, your band is something also. Like if you have, you know, aspirations for your band and things you'd like to do, like all of these really come together. They will totally support you in this. So Nick has great information that he's gonna share and be in that space. So are you able to bring your camera on, Anthony, or are you in a place that it doesn't work?
So right now, the lighting in my room is not great because they're doing construction, or I don't know, renovation, and there's lots of dust. So I've closed all the windows and the blinds because they're like out there right now.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's pretty dark in here. Yeah.
Well, all right. So we can imagine. It's kind of like, you know, your square is black, and so we can imagine you in the dark and safely away from all the dust and construction. I hear you. I empathize. I've been in that kind of place. It's a little unfun, but
So for lesson planning, we're just going to define some basic terms, go through a planning worksheet of an example lesson, and then we can expand the same foundations to event planning. It's like any project or written article. You answer who, what, when, where, why, and how. So on the worksheet, there's a term intended learning outcome. So what do you want the participants to learn? And then how will you know you achieved the intended learning outcome? So these are action words, like, do you want them to be able to recite something, explain something, apply it to their own lives in some way? Here's the lesson planning outline. So Anthony, do you have an idea of a lesson you might like to lead?
Honestly, no. I could probably think of something.
yeah, yeah. I mean, even if you think, Anthony, in terms of like, you don't have to have a title necessarily, but in terms of, like, if you think about your own life, you know, like a challenge you're dealing with, and, you know, how would you create a lesson around that has people get, you know, really present? You know, it's really kind of, yeah, even if you use your band for an example, you know, your title or your lesson topic could be, how do you go from a vision, like some vision you want, like, and making something happen? Like, what's the title of your lesson? Making it happen. And you can have one little piece in there that you want. So I don't know if that resonates, or just anything, or, you know, what gets in the way. Like you think of like, oh, it'd be really cool if our band had some original songs to play. You may already. And like we want to play in a place where people are paying money or or whatever you have. But yeah, really unity just keeps coming back to it's practical, like the practical application of these truths in our lives. So it's not just out there in a book somewhere, it resonates within us. So then we can go have awesome lives.
So I should make a lesson plan around like realizing something and like or you know taking something from an idea to being real.
You totally could. Like, how do you manifest something?
Yeah, you could with band as an example, like the finished song is the vision, right? But each section has their own responsibility in fulfilling that vision. Right? You said you play trumpet. So do you as an individual participant play, you practice your part, you practice as a section with the other brass instruments, and then how does that all come together? But then what happens when someone doesn't hold up their commitments? Like what happens if the person that's doesn't learn their part? And then how do you work with that? Like that's one example. Or you mentioned game theory earlier. Like that's a fun lesson topic.
Yeah.
And how it applies to daily life.
Yeah. Good catch, Nick. That's great.
So would you like to explore one of those together during the session?
I could definitely see doing a lesson on game theory.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys heard of the prisoner's dilemma or no?
Not by title. Tell us about what that is.
It's a thought game where two prisoners or two criminals who don't know each other are going to be they're being charged, and they can't communicate with one another. If one of them says the other one did it, then they get to leave, and the one who got blamed has to stay. If he says that he also did it, so they can both either confess or say that the other one did it. If they both say that the other one did it, then they both get a medium sentence. If they both confess, then they both get a short sentence, or they can betray the other one and just go free while the other one has a long sentence. That was made here. Who was? There's somebody who was the original game theorist who invented. He was like important to like DNA sequencing and like the Manhattan Project. Who invented game theory? John von Neumann. Yeah. So the game theory can be applied to anything that just has participants and winners and losers, and not always one winner, but usually many. So a multi-sum game. I feel like there are a lot of great examples that could resonate definitely with kids about how game theory works and how we should treat others. Like one of the main pillars on YouTube was beauty content creators who made tutorials on how to use products and things like that. At one point back in like I want to say 2019, they started being hostile towards other channels and telling their viewers to not watch them, and they saw YouTube and social media as a zero-sum game where only one person can win, and that kind of ended up backfiring, and beauty just kind of isn't a part of the YouTube like landscape as much, like at all. It hasn't really recovered because instead of everyone sharing like viewers and influence, everyone lost when each one of them tried to be greedy, like the prisoner's dilemma.
That's so good. That's such a great example. And then, so here's the thing. I don't know if you were there for living curriculum with Angie or if,
Yeah,
Ah.
living curriculum.
yeah, you're bringing it back to yourself. You're bringing it back to our own lives. So it's like, where are we where we think that we are, we're just going to get ahead and, too bad for the other ones. You're like, where do we do that in our lives?
Traffic.
Oh, so that's a good one. Totally. How do you drive? Yeah. Yeah, I don't care about you. I'm cutting you off and whatever else. But yeah, I think this would be you would have rich fodder in this. You put that link in, I'm trying to remember, I copied the link, but I couldn't watch the whole thing. I could just see the guy that said trust. And was that a video?
So there's a YouTuber, there's a YouTube channel called Game Theory, and usually they do it's a pun. Usually it's not actually about game theory, the economics concept. Usually it's about like how high can Mario jump and stuff like that, like theories about video games instead of game theory, the concept itself. But
Yeah.
recently they so the host, the show started way back in the earlier internet days, and the host recently passed off the torch to a new host, and so they had a special like final game theory sort of thing, and the host wanted to leave on a good note, so he left trying to explain, according to game theory, the mathematically best way to do everything, which is those 4 simple steps.
Oh, the trust, the ones that he had outlined.
Yeah, because any situation with multiple people or like quote unquote players and multiple outcomes, game theory can be applied to.
Nice. That's super awesome.
Which Unity teaching would you apply to that idea?
I'm not sure.
So are you familiar with the 5 principles in Unity?
That definitely sounds like something I've heard.
Sure. So in a nutshell, is that what you were kind of going for, Nick? Like so in a nutshell, the first one is God is everywhere. There's not anywhere you can look where you won't find God, the creator, the essence of love, the stuff that makes up everything. God is. That's one. And the second one is like we call the shortcut is I am. Like God is I am. That is in me. That Christ consciousness, we call it in Unity, that which divine mind, that is like our link and our channel to the overall. It's in us all the time. And it's up to us to either be conscious of it, or we can also choose not to be conscious of it. So that's Unity principle number 2. Unity principle number 3 is really about the power of our mind and our thoughts to create our world. And we can, the zippy is what you think about, you bring about. Your thoughts create your world. Number 4 is about the positive aspects of prayer and meditation, connecting with the divine, and affirmation, affirming the things you want in your life, denying not that things are the denials in Unity are about saying, oh, this has no power over me. I see this is here, and I'm not going to let it have power over me. I'm maintaining my center. I'm maintaining my focus. There's no power over me. And the last one is the last Unity principle. Be like logging them all in your mind. The last Unity principle is about, okay, I have all these tools. I have all this knowledge. If I don't put it to use, it does me no good. I can only take this information and put it to use in my life, then it means something. I put things in action. I don't just learn about something and then tuck it away and pack it away somewhere in a dusty old alcove in my brain. I'm going to put it to use.
Have you heard of the slang term being based or no?
What is that?
So the youth will sometimes call themselves or others based, and generally what that means is they don't let the opinions of people who are just out to hurt others affect them. So it
Nice.
can mean like a thing of confidence or just a lack of fear of people who don't want to like you. Yeah.
That's cool. That kind of, are you thinking that fits into one of the unique principles?
Yeah. The not letting one thing or another affect you.
Yeah, unique principle number 4, like that, I mean, it's in general, it's saying we have access through prayer and meditation. We have access to the divine, to the world beyond that which we see. And then we have tools like we can affirm what we want, and then we can deny that any of these other things that are happening around us, that they have any power over us to knock us off our center. So that does sound like based.
Yeah.
That's unique principle number 4. But with that, how does that fit in with your game theory? How do you feel being based links back to game theory?
Well, okay. The third part of game theory, or I think it was the second, was don't be a pushover.
That's cool.
So lend people your trust first. Don't lead with distrust, but be willing to not give someone trust if they misuse it. And because game theory can be applied to like anything, and obviously has been, there's like even game show studies that like what's it called? There's a show called Golden Balls in the UK, which it's sort of like some in the US too, but the main thing I'm talking about with it is it has a like take or steal system with the money near the end. And if you actually look at the data, it fits with game theory, where those who lead with trust but hold those who misuse it accountable, and then forgive them upon them showing that they are trustworthy again, as well as being obvious about why they would or would not trust somebody, usually do win the most in the end.
Sweet. I love what you said about, like, if someone breaks your trust. So tell me if I got this right, what you said. So say, you lead with trust, you hold people accountable, and if someone like messes up, then you're saying, okay, I forgive you. And how do we move forward? How do we rebuild? Is that kind of part of it?
Yeah.
Or not? Yeah.
Transparency is, well, for the whole thing to work, each step should be followed. It's interesting because step 1 and step 2, and then step 3 are all they're all sort of talking about the same thing, which is trust, but they're all advice on when to have trust and when to limit trust so that you're not too trusting. So obviously lead with it. If someone breaks it, immediately and obviously hold them accountable, but be willing to forgive.
Totally.
And I think that, yeah, the second one, don't be a pushover. Hold them accountable. Don't let them off the hook. Acknowledge what they did and acknowledge that you can also just move on. And the fourth one is, be honest. Talk like if you're going to use the principles, you can even just straight up show them to who you're applying them to, so that they can get a better understanding for how you and them can both work together under the system.
That's great. I think that's a great, like you said, it applies to so much. So, you're choosing this as a topic. I think people could look in their lives and say like, oh, where can I use this? Where, even where have I trusted someone and they let me down, but then there was no accountability. Like that happens in relationships and you're like, and it's a friend and they were really, they've been a good friend and you let something slide and then you let something else slide. And pretty soon it's like, I don't want to hang out with them anymore. But, if you were able to consciously put that in place and be
Skip the
honest.
accountability steps. Like you went from trust to forgiveness without holding them responsible and being transparent about how you feel.
Yes.
Like, it really hurt my feelings. You didn't show up to our arranged, meeting time. You didn't let me know you weren't going to be there or let you know that you forgot about it. Like, how can we repair the relationship rather than just like, oh, well, it happens. Like, but your feelings are still hurt and you need to address that.
Mm-hmm. So true.
I mean, it seems like you can apply game or the unity principles to each of the principles of game theory. Because like leading with trust, I mean, all of this is like we're all connected. Like you're saying, it's not a zero-sum game. Like if we act like we're all connected and we're all one, we'll act for the benefit of all, and we'll all be better off. And also, like, if you want to hold positive thoughts about, like, if you think that everyone is on your team, then hold positive thoughts about them and help lift them up so they can perform better. Yeah, it's like you can pick any of them and have a really enriching conversation.
Yeah. You could do 5 lessons, Anthony. Can do the game theory segment of YOU. Figure out your life in 5 easy lessons. Go.
Yeah, there was one we did at a unit retreat where you pair up 2 people for an arm wrestling match. And when whoever pushes their opponent's hand down gets an M&M for each round. So you try to get as many M&Ms as you can. And when the pair realize that if they intentionally lose, they can just take turns losing, they get a bunch of M&Ms. But if
so good.
the participant is always trying to win, then they don't get as many.
So let's see. So it was push someone's hand down, did you say?
Yeah, so if you're doing arm wrestling, if I win, I get an M&M. But if I let them win, they get an M&M. And if we take turns letting each other win, we get a bunch of M&Ms.
Oh, and everyone's happy clappy.
Right.
That's awesome.
In fact, the contestants of that Golden Balls game I was talking about, actually, Golden Balls has been off the air for a while now because they applied a bit too much game theory and realized if they led with trust, one could say, hey, don't do the steal option, and then afterwards, after the show's over, I can give you half of the winning money.
Oh.
So they game theory too hard, and the show is off air. But yeah,
that's
too many
so
people
funny.
were winning.
Oh, that's actually such a, sad if it's off the air for, fans and people are doing it, but hilarious that people gamed it and figured out win-wins. I think, you know what? I think this is huge because this whole thing is about win-win. It's not about I win, you lose. And if someone is coming across and not being trustworthy and we just, hold them accountable, forgive them, be honest and transparent about how it's affecting us, next? Like, don't make it so hard.
So, I mean, so I've been taking notes on this lesson plan outline, and you've got the start of a really good lesson,
Oh, 100%. Look at this. That's
especially
great.
if you use the prisoner's dilemma as your story, as your discussion jumping off point. So that's just coming up with questions.
Yeah, how did you relate? I mean, even just, how do you relate to this? Where do you see
Yeah.
this in life? All of those are all good jumping off questions.
But
Yeah, I
yeah,
see.
my younger sister and I applied this early on in life. It's like, if I tattle on you, we both get in trouble. We just agree not to tattle on each other, we won't be in trouble. So, because we implicate ourselves in the tattle, obviously. So we agreed as young children to work out our differences between us and not take it up to our parents. And it worked really well. Because like I had a friend who was constantly fighting with his sister and using parents to leverage punishment and stuff. It's like, yeah, I'd much rather have the peaceful relationship where even if we have a conflict, we can work it out rather than constantly at war with each other.
Ooh, and isn't that an interesting societal application? Like, can you work it out amongst yourselves? Do you really need to call in the legal system? And I mean, maybe sometimes, yeah, but is there more ways to work out stuff with your neighbor? Invite them over for a barbecue and like find some common ground. We all have common ground of some kind. Start from there. Yeah, that's great. You have your prisoner's dilemma. Do you have a thought, Anthony, of like an activity to do that would be demonstrating this?
It's difficult because it's difficult because the whole thing about game theory is that it is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the best way to see it would be reaccounting when game theory maybe would have been good to apply and wasn't. Oh, like America de-escalated the Cold War by following the principles of game theory.
Oh, say more about that.
So like maybe doing a web search for when game theory has been good in history.
That'd be cool, just to give them another application of it.
Like the only way I could think to like practically show game theory in like just among the youth would be doing some activity like the prisoner's dilemma, but I feel like that'd work out a bit too obviously, you know.
Right. I wonder, I don't know the golden ball game, but I wonder if there's something you could do with that, only you could use, well, like Skittles or marbles, or I mean, I don't know, but if it's something that comes out in the end. I was part of a huge group. There's like 250 of us. And it was kind of that game theory application. It's called the red and black game. And the solution to the game was like coming together and not being against each other. But most people were figuring out how to beat the other person. Like, oh, we're going to win this. And I realized at the time I had the solution. And I said, I mean, it was a big group. And I said, hey, if we just did this, if we sent someone over, they didn't say we couldn't do this, sent someone over and talked, and then we could work this out. And, we're like, no. And I didn't stick to my guns. It was a situation where I was like, fine, whatever, do your thing. I just let them go. And at the end, when we were processing the result, the person instructing us said, yeah, all of the people who knew at least at some point they had kind of an urge, like, I think this would work. And you didn't really make a stand for it, finding out you're even more guilty than the ones that just push forward blindly. But I feel like that's in the game theory realm. Like if you
Being
know,
more guilty than the ones who put that sounds like the
like
the trolley
guilty.
dilemma.
Oh, and
to
what
me.
is the trolley dilemma?
There's a trolley on a train track, and
Mhm.
there's 5 people on one track and 1 person on the other, and you can pull the lever to switch it to the person with to the track with only 1 person, but then you're implicit. So the question is it wrong to do nothing and not be, or are you part of the situation by doing nothing and letting 4 extra people die, or are you putting yourself in harm's way by letting 1 person perish?
Now, those are those things that are, like the story of like you're on a raft and you have a grandma and an infant and only 4 of you
Yeah.
can survive and you got to pitch the other one over to the sharks. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, yeah, here's the thing. None of those allow for divine mind, divine intelligence, divine intervention. There's none of those, there's not space for that. So I feel like in any of these situations, not the prisoner's dilemma, because that's like a win, you can make a win-win out of that, which I love. But in the situation of, yeah, like the trolley car thing, like opening up, there's something off my radar that I don't know, and going to guidance. Because the world is so secular, they think, in general, everything we touch is the only thing there is, and it's all you got. And there's nothing beyond this. There's no earthly realm beyond in the metaphysical that has any reality. And so then we take it as, oh, we have to either kill 1 person or 3 when there's a third option. Anyway, that's my thought around
Nice.
it. I love your lesson. I love it. I think it's so awesome.
Yeah.
Are you excited to do it? I mean, I think you're like, 2 sentences away.
Yeah, yeah. This shaped up pretty well.
Yeah.
Adding to it.
And what's so great, Anthony, is you were in a place where you could bring something that was important to you, that you had a passion about, which is exactly what this is. And you can share it with other people and then, help them make their lives